Today, we're diving into the life of a man who is, well, a total contradiction. He's someone who lived deep inside the outlaw biker world and now, believe it or not, makes his living explaining that exact world to the rest of us.
Producer, author, former outlaw biker. I mean, how often do you see those three things describing the same person? It's pretty rare, right? But these are the pillars of Edward Winterhalder's life. He's a successful media guy who creates TV shows and writes best-selling books, and he's a former high-ranking member of the Bandidos, one of the most infamous outlaw motorcycle clubs on the planet. So how in the world do those two lives connect? That's what we're going to break down.
So first up, let's just talk about who Edward Winterhalder is today. Because in the media world, when it comes to outlaw biker culture, he is the guy, the undisputed authority. To say he's written a few books is, well, it's the understatement of the year. That single-handedly makes him probably the most thorough chronicler of this very secretive culture. And this isn't just a local thing, you know? We're talking global. His work has been translated into at least 6 different languages. So you've got people from France to Japan reading his stuff, all looking for a real, authentic peek behind the curtain. It makes sense, then, that when the major news networks, we're talking CNN, the BBC, the History Channel, when they need someone to explain a big story involving bikers, there's one name on their list. He's become the media's official go-to expert. He's the authority. Okay, so all of this success, all this credibility, it naturally leads to a pretty big question, right? A question about authenticity. I mean, seriously, how does a guy who makes TV shows and writes books get this deep inside? You don't get that kind of real, gritty insider knowledge of a secret and frankly dangerous world by just reading about it in a library. No way. You have to have lived it. And boy, did he ever. The answer, as you might have guessed, is in the first half of his adult life. It's found in his decades-long, deep immersion inside the Bandidos Motorcycle Club. And look, this wasn't some brief phase. It was a 24-year journey. He started as an associate way back in 1979 and worked his way all the way up, becoming a full patch member in 1997. He didn't just join, he founded the club's Oklahoma chapter. He was involved in massive, violent conflicts, like the Quebec Biker War, before he finally left it all behind in 2003. And don't think for a second he was just some guy in the background. Far from it. He's described as, and I'm quoting here, instrumental in expanding the organization worldwide. Let that sink in. He was operating at the very top, making strategic moves that shaped the club's global future. To really get what kind of world this was, you have to know about the Quebec Biker War. This was an incredibly violent, bloody turf war in Canada, and Winterhalder's role? It was critical. He was tasked with managing the very complex, very dangerous job of absorbing a rival club, the Rock Machine, into the Bandidos. This was not a corporate merger. It was a war, and the human cost was just staggering. Over 160 people were killed. That number, that tells you everything you need to know about the reality of the world Winterhalder didn't just live in. He was one of its leaders. But then, in 2003, everything changed. After almost a quarter century inside that life, Winterhalder made a decision that would completely redefine who he was. He walked away. He chose to leave the outlaw life behind him, deciding instead to focus on his family and his legitimate businesses. It was a very conscious pivot, turning his back on a world that had defined him for decades. It's almost like his life split into 2 completely different columns. You have the Bandido life, where the priorities were brotherhood, conflict, and growing the club. And that got completely replaced by a new set of priorities: family, business, and, fascinatingly, writing. Writing about the very culture he just walked away from. So what do you do with all that unique, hard-won knowledge? Well, you don't hide it. He leveraged it, and he built an entirely new career on top of it. He became this multi-platform creator, tackling his old life from every possible angle. As a producer, he makes TV shows like Quebec Biker War. As an author, he writes the definitive books on the subject. He's not just telling one story. He's built an entire media ecosystem around his past. And his work in television is where you really see his massive influence. By creating and producing this whole lineup of shows, he's doing way more than just giving a few quotes. He is actively writing the public narrative of biker culture, shaping how we all see that world from the inside out. And that leaves us with this incredible paradox, doesn't it? Winterhalter physically left the Bandidos, but his entire career is now built on that past. He's an outsider to the club, but he's become the ultimate insider to the public,